You're listening to the Diagnosed Podcast, where every diagnosis has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. From survivors to loved ones, we explore the journey together with your host, Albano.
If you get value out of this video, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Let's get on to the video. I'm going to list off some of your accolades, let's say, because you have quite a list of things that you've done and accomplished and everything else. But to keep it short, you're a practitioner of manual osteopathic treatments. You're a clinical therapeutic nutritionist.
Yep.
You're a doctor of botanical medicine.
That's right.
Which ties into the nutrition. And a lifelong practitioner of martial arts, BJJ
Yes.
black belt, Muay Thai crew, etc., etc.
Yes, pretty much.
I'm sure I probably missed a few in there, but I think the meat and potatoes of it is there, right?
Yes. And the distinction for the nutrition is I'm like clinical, so a metabolic health therapeutic nutritionist, which means like I work off of actual medical diagnosis and labs. That's the distinction. So like you can do a weekend course and become a nutritionist and make like a meal plan, or I don't know, whatever they do, where
Right.
it took me 2,500 hours of clinical rotation, being under a supervisor of a medical doctor, several medical doctors for me to attain that. So it's a big distinction. That's why I'm able to interpret labs and apply them. So
what's the title definition in terms of the distinction? One is a clinical therapeutic nutritionist.
yes, that's in an environment working with medical doctors.
Right. Versus just a nutritionist where
They
you
can
take the
take the
course. Yeah. Okay.
food journal, whatever. This was I actually had to learn like clinical labs, like that's a part of it. Any nutritional courses I've taken outside of it weren't even close. They give you macros, your food groups, you follow the food guideline of the country you're in. I mean, I've had courses where the professors are from India, the professors are from the States, from Australia. So they're pulling from whatever food guidelines. So the distinction is, other than the nutritional training I've done here in the clinic, I've never run into that in any course other than actually my osteopathy, because I was in university for that, and because I'm very short, maybe a couple months away from completing my doctorate in osteopathy. And in osteopathy, you have clinical labs. Like it's like a doctor without being able to prescribe pharmaceuticals. Literally, we do everything except I can't actually prescribe it. So, but we can get into that because
Yeah. I'm glad you cleared that up and made those distinctions clear right off the bat, because it gives us a little bit of a different perspective as to exactly what your expertise is. So I
yeah.
think it's important to establish that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. Well, it's not defined right now. They have just like I'm a registered manual osteopath as opposed to just a manual osteopath. So because there's no regulation, we're moving towards regulation. We need some sort of rules. And so the same with nutrition. So people have gone ahead and tried to emulate registered bodies and do exactly what they're doing, or even go beyond, making sure that we have everything in place so that when the hammer comes down from the government, we will be well within the requirements needed. So the same thing with nutrition. Nutrition is not regulated. A nutritionist, they're not regulated. So again, you could have a weekend course, or you could have like me. I'm coming out of so it was COVID, so 2020. So I'm moving into my 6th year in a clinical position in a medical environment under medical designation. So it's a really, really different environment,
Yeah,
which,
it sounds like.
yeah, it's something I take a great pride in a good way. Like,
Of course.
it's just some magic is happening in with nutrition, and we have been able to interact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
have a whole bunch of things that I want to get into in regards to nutrition and your
yeah,
practice. But before we do that, because I'm a huge martial arts fan, I'd
yes,
like to actually just ask you a little bit about that, um,
for
because
sure.
it's a big part of your life. I mean, it
Yes,
has been for many, many years, it still is today,
yes.
and I wanted to just basically get a little bit of an in-depth understanding as to how your martial arts journey began.
Yep, no problem. Like right
Y-
now, or when we get
Yeah, if
into
you
it.
could just tell us a little bit about that, how you got started, how it became part of your life, and how that developed.
It started when I was young, so it started at the YMCA in judo, and when I was 6 or 7, and I've took some time off of judo, came in and out, had moved to jiu-jitsu, but in the early, well, I guess late 70s, 80s, it was judo. Always wanted to be like Bruce Lee, watch the Saturday morning matinees. Used to have like all the Asian cinema and martial arts and stuff, and I just fell in love with Bruce Lee, wanted to be like Bruce Lee, dreamed of being like Bruce Lee. And at that time, I remember around 14, I was like, I want to be the greatest martial artist in the world. So it started with judo, and then I started Hapkido, which is a Korean martial arts, kind of like think of a combative version, hybrid version of if Taekwondo's more sport, Hapkido would be the more combative style. So it was a synergy of some Japanese and Korean arts. Um, did Hapkido for years, and then from Hapkido I got to Kung Fu. So all what was happening early on is I would be doing like whatever jobs. I was like, what do you call the guy walks people to their seats in the cinema? What's that called?
Oh, the usher.
I was like an usher. I was
Yeah.
like worked in a head shop selling rock T-shirts. I was just odd. I was a dishwasher. I was, but from the age of 6, shaping me, forging me, literally making me who I was and who I would be was this martial arts. And I was just super blessed, really blessed with having almost a cinematic level of mentors in the sense of what you see it like the Miyagi type. It was really blessed. I never had any like crazy, insane, cult like, master that we had to kiss their nothing like that. Always like fatherly, family oriented instructors, and which I think made a huge impact on me because I looked up to them. I finally made it to Hamilton, started in Wing Chun Kung Fu in the 90s, early 90s. And that's where serendipity or just a chance meeting. I was a waiter at Red Lobster and I was serving a table. And the guy at the table said, "Have you ever thought of bouncing? You're really good with people." I didn't even know what bouncing meant. And so he explained to me like it was security and whatnot. And I said, "No." He's like, "Well, I'd really like you to come out and work for me, give it a try." And that was like 92, 93. And there began the odyssey, the adventure of the Sandman, that persona. Um, I got my black sash in Wing Chun Kung Fu, and that was the original art for Bruce Lee. But it's so esoteric, so out there that like that people they don't know what it was. They didn't know what it was. And I was able to use it to not hurt people. This was the wild part. It was so intricate in like trapping their hands, stopping them from striking, what I call conversation mode, that it fits so well that I quit being a waiter and I became full time into security. And that's where I also started to hear about jujitsu. I think UFC was coming out in 93, right? 93,
Yep.
94.
Yep.
And I was getting into this kind of, at that time, it was called NHB or no holds barred fighting. And allegedly, I was part of some of those fights. Because I was running into those types of people like enforcers and whatnot through the security industry. And so I quickly found out what worked, what didn't work. I was getting reality checks early on. So there is some things that I thought worked, they didn't, you know. Um, that's what got me to jiu-jitsu and grappling. I had already started in Hapkido because there's a grappling portion to it. But then from there, I don't know. I need to master anything I put my mind to. I can't be like a little bit. So it was like when I did Kung Fu, I stopped judo. When I was doing judo, all I did was judo until I got my brown belt. I actually got my brown belt in 1997 in judo. And then I had to make a decision because I was training at the same time in jujitsu. So I was like, okay, I don't know if you're familiar with judo, but you have to do the kata. You have to learn and it takes
That's
about a
similar to
year.
karate, taekwondo. Yeah.
Yes, kind
Good
of an
forms.
intricate, yeah, with the throws. And that takes a lot of dedication. It's very formalized. I had to make a choice. So I made a choice and I just switched to full-time jujitsu, still having the Wing Chun in the background, gravitating into Jeet Kune Do. So like I said, I would, get to at least what would be considered a black belt level. And then once I tucked that in my belt, no pun intended, I would move on to the next. And so through decades, about 30 years, I moved up from watching the back of the bathroom to, moving up to doing personal protection, doing close protection skills courses, going to school, actually going to the police college for proper training, just like a very detailed search for knowledge within the martial arts. And the more I learned, the more I started to see why my teachers were the way they were, going back to, they were wise. And they knew how to fix, like, if my wrist was out, they would fix it on the spot. They were like chiropractors, or they would do like, I learned acupressure, dim mak, death touch and all that, but actual pressure points. And so I would be stuck and they'd come over and they'd go like, and boom, I could move. So I would be able to fight another round. So all of these, I didn't realize that yet, but the formation of my fighting years and then from a fighter to a coach, because of course I turned pro. I did Muay Thai bouts. I went to Thailand and fought in the King's Cup, like the World Cup, won a bronze for Canada. I got to travel the States in professional fights. Doesn't pay much, but pays a lot in the spirit. Um, Moved out of no holds barred fights, went into MMA. I didn't really do well in MMA. I only had 2 bouts. I went completely unprepared, which is funny. Um, because at that time I didn't take it seriously. I just thought I was tough, like I'm good, which I was in my small little pond.
Right.
Wake up, Samir. So
Yeah.
I was in Gananoque or Gananoque. It's
Something
a
like that.
reserve. Yeah, yeah. It was 99. This is where the RCMP or the OPP were still blocking people from going, and you had to cross water and all that jazz. So I just showed up, had no corner, didn't know. no training. Yeah, you can imagine, right? And then, we fast forward to 2006, and I'm turning pro Muay Thai. Got a full team. I'm with Iron Tiger, Alin Halmajan, who runs House of Champions now. He's like an amazing coach and promoter. And I was on that team. And when you have a team, when you have a coach, when you have a cut man, when you have a corner man, oh my God, like I came in and I was winning in first round, second round, like it was just an amazing experience. I also turned pro in boxing. So you see, I just tried to do each sport, say that I did it, and it really shaped me. And then at the same parallel time, I was working in high risk security, close protection, moving up the ranks until I actually was wearing like a collared shirt and sitting in an office, right? But um, it was wearing my body down, right? And when COVID came, 2020, I was running my gym. I've been a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt since 2015. I've been doing Jiu Jitsu since, say, 2001, running a business. And I just had to make some choices. And one of my students had come back. This was actually 2018. So my medical journey started in 2018. So you can just stop me if I'm just rambling on. Just
No, that's fine. Actually, I'm going to jump in because I want to ask you. You said that you moved to Hamilton and your martial arts journey kind of took off in a different direction. Earlier on, from when you were 6, you were studying a few of these different disciplines. Where were you at that point?
like physically.
Yeah, physically, like not yeah, like geographically.
Oh, I was in Sault Ste. Marie. I was
Oh,
up
it's
north.
okay. So you were doing this stuff in a small town, Northern Ontario,
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a
and then
northern
okay,
boy.
okay, and
Yeah,
then all right, and then
and
you moved
then
to Hamilton, and that's when things took off, and that's when it became a lifestyle for you, essentially.
yeah, I moved to Hamilton on purpose. So this might sound crazy, but I heard that Hamilton was full of mafia and bikers. And I thought if I wanted, because there was legends, right? There was like, I think they were called the Red Devils. There was Parkdale Gang, Sherman Gang. Like there was all kind of like stuff going on, different Italian families and stuff. And I thought, if I'm going to be the greatest martial artist in the world, I've got to go to the toughest city. So I literally went to the toughest city with the clothes on my back. And that's actually the start of it. I wanted to be the greatest martial artist in the world. I wanted to own a Mustang. See, my things were very simple. Somewhere in there, a wife and kids. But I got the Mustang for a very short time. And I think I got to a pretty high level of martial arts mastery. So yeah, that's where the journey started. And then I was actually got my seventh degree in jiu-jitsu in this is Japanese style. In 2010, I was recognized as a master martial artist or like a master of jiu-jitsu. So, but yeah, this was the stomping grounds. This was I developed into a person that I never foresaw. I never realized. We try to be prose and poetic about it, that the warrior doesn't fight. A true warrior doesn't fight. But this is correct. A true warrior doesn't fight because he comes to realize his own mortality. And I came to understand that at an early age, that we're here for a short time. And if you're going to do something, if it comes to violence, there's always a payment to be paid, whether it's yourself or someone else. And that you have to take that with gravity. And I was in enough situations which woke me up early. Some people, they miss that lesson and their stories, their stories end in a certain way. And I just stared down the barrel of a gun too many times, was in just compromised positions where just the wrong move, the wrong word, and I would have been dead. Uh, you don't need too many of those. I didn't need that many of those. And any action I ever took You know, I've never gone to jail. I've never been charged. I've had to go to court for other stuff, like not for something I've done, right?
Sure.
Just as a witness or whatnot. But I believe that's because I was always justified in the force I used. I didn't wait to be hit first. That's a myth. You don't have to wait to be hit first, but you have to be justified and you have to be able to articulate why you used physical force. And so if anyone's throwing out a black belt or a master title, that's the black belt and master title I would like to have as an accolade. Was I believe that I was able to master avoiding violence in the most violent situations. Like where I mean, people should have been dying. And I'm not exaggerating. Like people should have been dying. Some Toronto scenarios, lots of people, weapons, and we just calmed it down with the right words, just understanding there's a lot of dynamics involved in confrontation, in knowing the human person, and then even anatomy. Like even when I did get into a physical altercation, because I know anatomy, which bled into where I am now, like magic, is understanding leveraging joints. So I could maximize leverage. I understood fulcrums and levers, right? Force multipliers, vectors, physics. I just understood that. That's martial arts, right? And so I would be able to really leverage that knowledge and no one gets hurt.
Uh,
No one's going home with a scar.
I believe you had a saying. I heard it. I heard you say it. Um,
Depends on what you
it-
heard.
yeah. Well, you could correct me if I'm wrong here. So, just going back to street scenarios, I think you had 3 Fs was your model.
Be first, be fast, be furious. That's right.
First, fast, and furious.
You got it. The three.
And
Yeah,
that'll
that's good.
that'll save your ass. That'll save your ass on the street
That
most,
was,
more
yes.
times than not, right?
Yes, I think indecisiveness, indecision, and the pause kills most men and kills you in many ways, not just in the physical, but those that are indecisive suffer. So I knew being fast was more than just literally being fast. It was like make the decision. Already know what you're supposed to do. So be fast, right? And be first. Always be you decide, because if you allow the other person momentum, you're screwed as well, right? So be first, and with your first action, be fast, be very decisive, and then
And be
furious.
furious.
Intensity.
If you're gonna do it all out.
You got it. Because I have seen too many very powerful, very large men go down against untrained, smaller opponents because they didn't have that mentality. They took for granted their mortality. They took for granted their grandiosity, whatever was in their mind. They weren't decisive. And then when they put their hands on people, they did not maximize that intensity. I don't know you. I don't know you. So I
Mhm.
can't approach you like you're thinking that I'm going home to 3 kids and a wife. Like you don't care
You're not
necessarily
taking it
what.
for granted.
No. So I wouldn't even engage. Like I'm not scared to engage, but I just know the weight, the instance I'm in an action. I have to be furious. I have to make it like it's my last. And when I take that kind of advantage on someone, I then can control de-escalation. You see, it's opposite to what people think. If I come in at 100, well, I'm at 100. I can automatically determine, do I stay at 100 or can I go down? But if you go in at 30%, what if the other person has a better percentage momentum? Well, then if he's coming at me at 70 and I'm coming in at 30, I get smoked. So you see how my thought process was?
Right. I guess you build this mentality after being in enough confrontations on the street. You figure this stuff out.
Yes, because it's these reality checks and getting humbled. I think it's really, really important to be humbled, um, to just get your ego crushed, to question yourself. I think it's a very good way to build men in general, like young men, I think need that. They really need that because in general. I think we're a little bit more aggressive. We all think we can do a lot more than we actually can. And so, yeah, you learn really quick. I can't go in half-ass. I can't go in soft, but I also can't treat like I'm going to destroy everyone. So it's just, time and time again. And then, yeah, you get a pace. You can read. I would profile. I would read the person's body language. I'd make those decisions, pre-indicators. I'd pick them up. I'd go in, and I think better than all of that was my ability to translate that to someone else. A very successful, like, I don't know. I've been teaching since '94. I was teaching in Welland in 1994, and I only stopped like 2022, 23 to go full time. So I've been teaching a long time, and I've been able to translate those skills to other people. Um, I think fairly successfully, because no one's come back and said, "Oh, I got charged. I went to jail. I murdered someone or whatever." I don't have those stories.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting is that
Yeah.
early on for you in your in your martial arts journey, you are already thinking of MMA before or right around that same time when the UFC was starting to come out and people started understanding MMA, because you were doing this before. You were looking at this art and that art and trying to master this art and that art. So in a sense, you were almost at or ahead of that curve. I mean, Bruce Lee was
Yes.
one of the first ones to start looking at different martial arts and realizing that, one discipline is not the best, knowledge
Mhm.
in various disciplines, whether it's grappling or striking or whatever. And I think you said he was one of your mentors. So you definitely took on that philosophy of trying to learn different martial arts and different philosophies even before MMA became MMA.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, of course, I would have to learn Jeet Kune Do, which I was learning Jeet Kune Do. That's Bruce Lee's art. Different interpretations of Jeet Kune Do. So yes, I was mixing, and actually at that time, within my community, like the Jeet Kune Do and Wing Chun practitioners, even my own teacher for a little while, they didn't like that I grappled and I wrestled. I as a mediocre wrestler in high school, like I mediocre's I'm being nice to myself. I really sucked. Just being honest. But as an adult becoming a shoot wrestler, I was the West convener for shoot wrestling in the 90s. They didn't like that mix. Everyone was like stand up. And when I came to Burlington and I was doing security and bouncing, I was when I say smoking, it means like there was no resistance. I was like smoking people without hurting them. Like it was crazy child's play. So they were tough. They were like, and I could fight, like I can, punch and kick and elbow, and I know all that stuff. But like, why would you do all that? They would start, they'd take a swing. I do a duck under. I throw them. I suplex them. I do single legs, double legs, and then I get on top, and then it was done because they couldn't get me off. And I would do like a wrap up and like tie up their arms, and then sometimes slap them just to like calm them down. It's just like, so yeah, this was before. That's why I was a little bit cocky, not understanding that when you put it more in a sport format and there's rules, that conditioning becomes very important. Conditioning rounds, mindset. So, I mean, it's not about whether you can headbutt or bite or claw because that's all BS. Like, if those are your tools, you're going to lose against a trained person. Like, if those are your like
Of course.
go-tos. But I'm saying like there is a different format that I was not trained for, prepared for. And as I started to move out of my little pond, I had a good I had a good stretch probably until 2005 where I pretty much it didn't matter, even trained guys like whoever I came against. But I think my reign of terror was really done after 2005. Like your average Joe was doing jujitsu for a couple years. There was like blue belts everywhere by then. Like when I was training, like having a purple belt was like, oh my God, like it's a god in front of you. You know what I mean? So yeah, back then I was doing mixed martial arts. I was probably the number one well, no holds barred, what we call it. I was the number one grappler. I was grappling. But then eventually, it would probably be, oh, maybe, probably Jeff Jocelyn would have been the like lead pioneer, like the top guy in Hamilton for like legitimate either MMA or like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I was always like little bit behind him. You know, I was like Samir, that street fight guy, right?
Mhm.
And he was really he's a good guy to look at. Like that's who I wanted to become. You know, that was he just did it well before me, and I think he did it well, way better than me.
Well,
So
he was a big name.
yeah.
You know, at that time, everybody knew Jeff Jocelyn.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he was a big name. You went from Brazilian jiu-jitsu, sorry, Japanese jiu-jitsu, and then you
Yeah.
ultimately got your black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yes, under Robert Bernacchi. So let's see, I was first under Pedro Viana from Chicago. Rest in peace. He's passed away. That was 2001. So blue belt, purple belt. He was from the original Carlson Gracie senior and then junior team. And if for your audience, they don't know who that is there, he was the start of the American top team, Master Ricardo Laboria. And Master Ricardo Laboria, who is the head of the American top team based in the States, taught Charles McCarthy, not the referee, but the other Charles McCarthy, who taught Robert Bernacchi. That's my instructor. So that's my lineage. So I have a double lineage in the Carlson Gracie line. So both one is Pedro Viana, and then the other one is Ricardo Laboria, and they're both from Carlson Gracie. So it's a good, in my opinion, a good lineage to have. And then yeah, I got my black belt in 2015. And what I had done was when I got my brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I don't know if you're familiar of how difficult it is to gain a senior belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
You're
you
you're on average about 10 years of steady
yes,
training.
you got it. And like you can't fake it. Like either you can armbar someone or you can't. You can either bridge them off you or you can't. Like there's no, yeah, like I don't think you can fake it. Like it's really, really difficult to to fake it, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Uh
the one martial art, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that still today is very true to the belt that you have. So if you're a purple or a blue or a brown or a black, I mean, you're a real purple or blue or brown or black. I mean, they're
yes,
not
I
giving away in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You're
no,
earning.
yes, you're earning. There are some commercial schools, so like you'll have to go in and kind of do some homework to understand. But in general, if there's a certain standard of resistance, yeah, if you walk in and you see purple belt, you know he's, well, it depends on how much he's competing. But say you just have an average purple belt, that's like 3 to 5 years, right? And then brown belt, same thing, 5 to 7 years, something like that. And then it's a 10-year journey. Nowadays, because you can compete every week, there's competition every week. Where back in the day, you would compete every couple months. And there wasn't a lot of black belts. Now there's tons of black belts. You can get your black belt, I think, legitimately within 3 to 5 years, believe it or not, just because there are so many schools, so many black belts. And you and I can both look up on the internet within 10 seconds. I can Google the top winning move that won this year's championship. So when I was training, we only had VHS tapes. So, and they were really hard, or like those old school DVDs. And, they were far and few between. Now the access to the information is amazing. What I would say is different, say a black belt of my age and my years, is it is possible that can go into a school and a blue belt or purple belt might kick my ass. It's we see it happen because they're competing every week. They're but they just don't have. I can look at a move and I'll be able to teach that move. That blue belt probably can't do the same thing, or there's some nuance, or the experience, right? Just the
Yeah.
experience of. I mean, I guess I've been a black belt in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu for 10 years. That's just a black belt, not including from 2001. It's a long journey. So there's a lot in my head. I might not be able to like beat everyone up on the mat. I can with my mind, right?
Yeah, I find that
There's
so interesting that you're saying that because just recently I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he's been a black belt in jiu-jitsu for many, many years. And he recently just went down to train with Gordon Ryan in Texas.
yeah,
And he said that I asked him a little bit about that experience, and he said it was amazing because some people are really good practitioners, but they don't teach very well. And he
yep,
said it was incredible going to train with Gordon Ryan because not only is he the GOAT, but he said he's amazing at conveying what he's trying to teach you. He's a super, super clean and simple teacher. He said it was incredible to experience that with him down there.
yeah. That is something that you will run into consistently, especially with jujitsu. I remember actually giving I had to split my class one day, and I had a newer brown belt visiting, and so I just made some assumptions. You're a brown belt, you've been at it for years. So I said, I need you to do this half guard sweep. Do you know it? Yes, yes. Okay, so I left him and I went and did on my side of the class. I was teaching a beginner class. So, anyways, I got back and I said, okay, guys, show me and show me what you guys learned today. And like no one could show me what they learned. They were it was really brutal. And I could see that they were frustrated. So I didn't want to call him out. Like he did me the favor of, so I'm like, okay, sometimes we have those days or whatever. Uh I'd seen him roll. He can roll. He can fight, but he couldn't teach because I taught the same lesson. So say if that was a Monday, I taught the same lesson Thursday, and everyone got the move. Everyone, like it wasn't that difficult to move. There was like a kind of like a little bit of a technical reach with the gi thing, but I mean, other than that, it was the way I don't think he was able to use analogy, and I think analogy is the greatest teaching tool. And that goes for what I'm doing now. If you can draw a picture, if I know you're a carpenter or, you hike or, I don't know, you clean cars, uh, you work in the boiler room, I will try to find something that fits that. And then that's how I would teach the lesson. I would teach it within your language. Sometimes it takes me some time, but once I get to know how your brain works, I fit the lesson to you. So I'll have a general way of teaching a lesson, a general framework of how to explain it based on, physics. And then I walk around and I try to find the lesson that fits you. And then the golden rule that I was taught by my knife instructor, because I do Kali, right? Combative stick and knife. He said, never end a class with something new. Always end your class with the first lesson you gave. Amen. That was such a teaching gift, and he's in his late 70s now, but what a gift, right? That was Grandmaster Bram Frank. And so I started doing that. It was wild. So I would start out with the most fundamental, most basic lesson, walked around, did my thing, spoke in your language, right? And waited till there was success because you always end on a note of success. Everyone gets it. We go through the permutations or combinations. Okay, I look at the clock. It's going to be rolling time soon, because you end the class with some, sparring, right? I go back to the first lesson and I said, show me the first lesson. Everyone does the first lesson. They feel good. They end on a note of success. That move is locked in. They're happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. And then because that lesson was locked in, when they actually do the sparring, they pull that move off live. Now we've even doubled the lesson, the value even more. So it's things like that. It's again, see, going back to blessed with amazing mentors, blessed, older, wise, not full of themselves, always giving, very generous with their time, with their knowledge. Um, Hard not to love those mentors.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's a lifestyle for you. I mean, for many people, it really shapes them outside of that realm in their personal life. And you're definitely saying the same thing. So I want to get into the medicine, but before I do,
Yes.
I have one more question about mixed martial arts because I'm obviously a huge fan. I've been watching it since the early days, and still do today. And people over the years have debated, had conversations about different MMA fighters and what they contributed and who's the best, who's not the best in different times in their prime and this and that. Here's a question I have for you. I just want to pick your brain a little bit. Who would you say was the most I don't know if influential is the right word because we might go back to the early Gracies, but who did you think ultimately was the first true MMA practitioner that we know as a let's call it a famous person or somebody that we would all
Got it.
know who changed the sport or really adapted all the aspects of MMA and
I
kind
got
of
it.
yeah the one you know where I'm going with
Oh
this,
yeah.
right? That
Oh
one
yeah.
person that we can point to and say they really encompassed what MMA meant. Who would that be for you?
GSP.
I'm so glad you
George
said that
St.
because it's the exact
Pierre.
same person I would thinking.
Well,
Uh,
uh, I'll tell you. I'll tell you that
for
one
me, it's a
was an easy
no-brainer. It's
one.
GSP.
It's a no-brainer. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because you asked. Remember my story how I wanted to master each art? Didn't want to know. And so I'm going to tie this with your question and George St. Pierre. So just hang with me here for a second. So whenever I would go to a new martial arts, meet a new master, or try to master a new skill, I would literally empty everything out. I would pretend in a literal manner that I knew nothing. I would empty my cup, like Bruce Lee says. I came across George St. Pierre doing the same thing, and I saw it was like they were doing a story on him and his success. And then I was reflecting on my success, but why he stands out. He's the only guy, like totally opposite to BJ Penn training at that time, is where he would go into a camp that he was not the Lord. He would go into a camp where he would go to, and most people don't know that Quebec, why our Olympians in Canada, a lot of them are from Quebec, is that Quebec funds their Olympian athletes, where the other provinces don't have those kind of programs. So if you're ever wondering that on a side note, why we have so many French representatives as Olympians, that's because they have that programming. So George St.
Yes.
Pierre would go to Olympic level boxers, humble. He was the student. He did not tell them what he wanted to learn. He did not tell them how that training was going to go down. He went there as a student of boxing and was in pure boxing for the time he spent there. He threw out all the rules. He would do that with wrestling. But not only would he do that, he would go where he would get beat up. He would go where his ego would get crushed, where any thought that he was the man would be done. He did that with wrestling. He did that with Muay Thai. What's the French guy's name? The one on the show, the GSP brought him in as a coach. Do you remember that? He was drunk. He
Phil
was beating
Nurse?
everyone up.
Oh, you're talking
Uh,
about Koscheck?
no, no. George St. Pierre, when he was running the team on The Toughest Fighter,
Yeah.
uh, he brought in a coach, a Muay Thai coach, the French
Yeah, it
guy.
was Phil Nurse, I believe.
Was it Phil Nurse? I thought he
Right, he
brought
was
the guy with the accent. It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
Yeah,
We'll have to
it's
look it up.
escaping me right now. But I know he trained a lot of
But
Muay Thai with
yeah,
Phil
yeah.
Nurse.
But that's what makes him the best. He understood that you can't do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that is the mistake of a lot of MMA guys. They're in their own camp. They're running their own camp. They're making their own decisions. They are the boss, and you can't be a boss of your own camp. Remember when I was the boss of my own camp, I took the beats. When I was not the boss of my own camp, and I said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, another sprint, sir, yes, sir. Oh, don't eat this, yes, sir. I just did what I was told, and I won. It's a no-brainer. That's what GSP did. He is the first, and still to this day, I think, the measuring stick of how you should train in MMA is master each style, and then you create your own style, kind of like Jeet Kune Do, right? You create your own style. He took that jab to the next level. Like who jabs like GSP? Who does? Right? Superman jab. That's
Yeah,
where in my own. What were you gonna say?
yeah, I was gonna say again when he fought Koscheck that second time,
Yeah. So
he beat him basically with a jab. And when when somebody was asking him, why didn't you do anything else? He said, well, it's up to him now to do something else. I'm beating him with a jab.
that's it. And it's a sport. So I mean, people don't take that in consideration of what it does to your body. Cuts can really cut your career. If you have a cut and then someone knows where that cut is, they'll keep working that tissue, scarring. Like there's so many things that the uninitiated don't take in consideration. Yes, we need to entertain you. Yes, we're making money, but at the same time, we have to pick and choose when we're gonna go more than a jab. Like when he fought Matt Hughes, or when there's a fight where he has to show, okay, I'm a changed man. This is what I can do. These are my skills for sure. But, for other fights, you pick and choose. If you're winning, just win. That's the
Yeah.
name of the game. Win. Yeah.
I was always so intrigued by George St. Pierre because I enjoyed watching the fight game because I enjoyed the fight game. But after watching George St. Pierre, I actually wanted to see what he was going to do, not just the fight itself. Does that make sense?
Yep.
There was a separation there. It wasn't just watching the fight. I wanted to see what he was going to do against this opponent. He was taking down wrestlers when they were saying, you're going to out wrestle me, and he was
Yeah.
taking them down. He was, grappling with BJ Penn and putting BJ Penn on his back when he was,
Yep.
super high level jiu-jitsu guy. And who would have thought to put a jiu-jitsu guy on the ground at that time? And, George St. Pierre said, well, he's good when he's on top of the saddle. Put him down and I'll be on. So I was actually at that UFC 58 fight when he fought
Oh,
BJ Penn.
wicked.
Yeah, in Vegas. It was Canada versus UFC. I was there. But I think George St. Pierre, between, doing gymnastics and just doing different things what kind of a martial artist would think about doing gymnastics? It takes a separate, advanced mindset, I think, to do something like that and then implement it while he's fighting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think too, we should give credit to Faraz, his
yeah, Firas
initial
Zahabi,
coach.
yeah.
Yeah. I think he was a good source of making it happen, right? Of putting the team together, of matching. I I think he made the initial connection for the jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure. I will have to check that. But I know I think there's credit to him too. Going back to, it makes a big difference. Your corner man makes a big difference. Your coach makes a big difference to them designing what you need to concentrate on, making sure that your head's not blowing up. And I think we have to pay tribute to those people involved in GSP's camp as well. I think it was the whole package, and then he flourished from there. He really flourished, took it, he took it up himself, his own personal mindset, his own sense of discipline. And yes, reaching out to like plyometrics and old school Russian exercise and balance and
Yeah, he was
stability.
just so way ahead of his time,
Yeah,
I think.
he's still doing it. He still does that. I see
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure some info commercials. He's selling some equipment or something.
When you talked about just now about um, GSP and the jujitsu and putting BJ Penn on his back and giving credit to Faraz Zahabi. I think the person in that fight that was telling him to do it, if I remember correctly, because I looked it up at that time for sure, was John Danaher. And I
Yes.
think
Okay.
John Danaher, yeah, I think he was a big piece of that
Yes. Yes. Yes.
puzzle at that time. And I don't think I'm mistaken. I think it was John Danaher that said, put him on his back.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yes, because I think at one point he transitioned right from Faraz's gym to Danaher. I think that's what
I
happened.
think GSP trained at a lot of different places. And I think that
Yeah.
was, I think he was always a part of, a Faraz Zahabi and TriStar's gym, but he did, I know he
Yeah.
spent a lot of time with in Albuquerque down there. And I know he trained with Danaher. And I mean, he
Yeah.
was just a real student of the game. And
Exactly.
I
He
think
was a
he was a
student of the
student. And
game.
I think unintentionally, I think maybe just by default, he became one of the greatest teachers of the game because I think he's somebody that most people or a lot of people try to emulate and study.
Yes. Yes. He's likable. It it makes a big difference if someone's likable. If they're not likable, they could be a great teacher too. That's something that we didn't touch upon is what about the character themselves? Uh I did have one or two amazing teachers, one or two, that I couldn't stay with, although they were amazing. They just weren't likable, and they didn't have the same lifestyle, and I didn't wanna sacrifice that. That's just, like, not being hoity-toity or anything, but I'm not that, I don't know, like, I'm not I mean, I drank, I've had alcohol when I was younger, whatever, but I've never been like no drugs, no boozing, no late nights, no girls, no like some of that kinda stuff, and, so, yeah, I had to sacrifice, with 2, actually 2 coaches that I thought I was gonna connect with, worked with them, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is brilliant." And then, after practice, it's like, "Let's go to the strip joint," and I'm like,
So their lifestyle just didn't agree with you.
no, because 'cause I'm like, I'm going home to my wife and kids." Like, not to be a nerd, but that's just
Yeah.
not I don't know, like, to each his own flavor. That's not my flavor, so, yeah, I mean, I'm
I
sure
can appreciate what you're saying. You have to have chemistry while you're in the gym, but you also have to have some type of connection. And I think it's trust,
yeah.
outside of it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be said about someone's character, so if you're able to do certain things outside of the gym, then you're actually able to do them in the gym, I just haven't seen it, right? So if you're able to break your bond to your wife or break your bond and trust with your children, then if I'm just a fighter, I'm not even related to you, what can you do to me? It's just a matter of time. That's where my mindset is. So you know, who you are outside the gym is just as important as it is to me inside the gym. It's the same thing here. I stake my whole life on that. Just imagine you come into my house and I'm drinking Coca Cola, smashing a Mickey of whiskey, and eating French fries. Like I
And
have
telling
to
me how to be
match.
nutritious and healthy, right?
Yeah, come on. You know what I mean? So it has to match. It has to match. Maybe that's why my friend circle's small.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense, believe it or not. It definitely makes sense. I I'm gonna quote another one of your sayings because I want to transition a little bit into um, your medicinal practices and what you do.
Yep,
So you went from 30 years spent breaking bones to now devoted to healing them.
you got it.
That's another one of your sayings,
Yes.
and that's where your life is today,
Yes, sir.
helping people heal, stay healthy, be healthy, recover from different ailments, illnesses, and different things of that such. I have a few different topics that I wanted to go over that are pretty general with you, and hopefully you can um, either clear them up, set me straight, or just give some advice on these things. The first one I wanted to touch on is a little bit tricky, but what you do with nutrition and your practice is slightly different than a medical doctor. You guys have different purposes, let's say.
Yes.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong on anything that I say here. I'm just going to give you what I see coming out of it. Okay.
Yep.
When I think of my medical doctor, I think of reaction for the most part. When I think of what you do, I think of prevention more than reaction. Although, I mean, I think both of them can cross over slightly to each other.
Yep.
But I think of a medical doctor and I think of more reactionary. You know, you have this problem. I'm going to send you to do these x-rays to look into a little bit further, or we're going to fix it by doing this. I almost relate them to like a tow truck driver. There's an accident, they go there and they take it away and it goes to the body shop and they fix it up. And I look at, you know, your profession and I'm thinking of a lot more preventative maintenance, some reactionary, reactionary ailments or recommendations as well. But for the most part, that's how I see the two differences. Does that make sense or no?
Yes, it does. I would label what you're trying to say. So a medical doctor is trained, and his or her practice, is around acute care, and so it is reactionary. It is somewhat preventative on a short term. That's what they do. So, say you have a heart palpitation and you have no clue, and you're like, I'm having a heart attack. You don't call Samir. You go to acute care, you go to emergency, because they will have the triage abilities, the IV, the medications, and the specialists to keep you alive if you're having a stroke or a heart attack. If they need to keep you alive for the next week, the next month, you go see the medical doctor that has powers of diagnostics, ultrasound, x-ray, CT, and medications that literally will keep you alive when you would normally die. That's what they do. Some preventative care. Uh, I am fully preventative. I can do acute care. I have botanicals, I have vitamins, minerals. I can do acute care on the spot. It's just not as powerful as pharmacological strategies, right? I don't have an IV at my clinic not yet. And our care, our medicine is called chronicity, chronic. So go to your doctor. He takes care of you today. My specialty is, where are you going to be in 1 year from now? Where are you going to be in 5 years from now? So that's where my care is centered around, is proactive routines, prevention and prediction, the 3 Ps, right? Creating proactive routines, using preventative methods, and predicting outcomes from those first two strategies. So that's the big separation. So I'm delegated from a medical doctor. So when I'm working from under the medical doctors, they've already diagnosed you with, if you have a disease or illness or a bag of symptoms, and then they give it a name. You've already had your event. You're already on medications. So that acute care has taken place, and they're keeping you alive. They are not keeping you thriving. You might not even be happy. They're just keeping you alive. That's where I pick up. And that's where osteopathy picks up. Osteopathy is, how can I make this person live today in an acute situation? How can I get them to live healthy, pain-free, and live a long, beautiful life without giving them a pharmaceutical medicine or doing a surgery? That's what osteopathy was originally intended, and that's what I'm trying to bring back. So, as opposed to being a medical doctor, I'm a doctorette. So that's kind of where I am.
Our sponsor for today's episode comes from Audrey Souza. a licensed insurance advisor dedicated to helping families stay financially supported through life's toughest moments. From life and critical illness insurance to long-term financial protection, Audrey works with clients across Toronto and Southern Ontario to create personalized plans that bring peace of mind today and security tomorrow. You can learn more by reaching out on Instagram at Audrey Souza Insurance or by email at audrey.souza@dfsin.ca. That's audrey.souza@dfsin.ca, because your family's future deserves more than what ifs. Okay, having said that, I wanted to pick out a couple of topics that people have either brought to my attention or piquing my interest, because there's so many with the invention of the internet. There are so many people out there giving advice, talking about this, talking about that.
Yep.
Some may be good, some may not be. These things also change all the time. What was good 10 years ago is not good now. This food was good 10 years ago. Tomorrow it's not. It's constantly changing. So us as citizens trying to absorb all this, what's good for me, what's not good for me, too much water, not enough water, alcohol's good, alcohol's bad, smoking at one time was permitted in, airplanes and hospitals,
Yeah.
and so things evolve. Mostly I would hope they evolve for the better, but sometimes they go backwards. And when I say they go backwards, I mean this is good for you. 2 years later, oh, studies show this is not good for you. And things are always changing. There's a couple of topics that I wanted to touch on with you to get some clarity on them, and maybe you could put these in perspective. So specifically with nutrition, and I'm going to be very general here because obviously every case is individualized.
Yep.
But talk to me a little bit about protein, animal protein, red meat, protein in general versus, carbs or versus different starches or whatever. Protein and carnivore diets and all these things have been very popular lately. So what are your thoughts on that? And maybe you could just clear that up for me. Protein, red meat,
Yep.
in that area right there.
So before I start quoting meta-analysis and studies, so meta-analysis is when they take a whole whack of studies, crush them together, and try to get rid of the bias and just look at the data, the numbers. So if we just look at the evolutionary process, we go into a biology book, a chemistry book, 101, me moving, talking, thinking, my bones, my skin, my eyesight, every mechanism in my body is some form of protein or enzymatic action. It's a protein. You'll hear peptides, right? Some sort of peptide portion of a protein. So right off with that knowledge, that's not my opinion. I just have to look into a book and say, what's my skin made out of? And when you're breaking it all down to the smallest bits, it's going to be a protein, right? Then I would say, then you have to have protein, and you probably have to have a certain amount just to sustain the body. And how do we know this? Well, just common sense. As you look at people, their children leave their homes. They no longer have to cook for their children. They're just on their own. Their health starts to deteriorate. And what's the one constant? Well, you start to see them start their day with tea and crumpets or tea and toast, or, some milk and cereal. But what you see is that their protein starts to go lower and lower and lower. So in any study I've ever come across, we might all argue about like optimal levels, but not even the vegetarians and vegans will argue that you need amino acids, you need peptides. All these words mean protein. So it's a necessity. You have to externally intake protein. And clinically speaking, and I don't think I'm, what's the word? I'm not exaggerating when I say anyone that I have had protein prioritize. I don't give them a number. I don't say this per pound, per kilos. I don't give them any calculation. I just say, whenever you sit down and eat a meal and you consider it like a meal, make sure you have protein in it. Well, within a couple days, they feel better. After a couple weeks, they feel amazing. Everything starts to change. So my thoughts on protein is that should be your primary nutrient because it's essential. You start to get sick when you remove protein. And that's why when we do study vegetarians, vegans, pescatarians that don't supplement properly, they deteriorate because they're just not getting the protein needs that their body needs for functions, for your heart, for your organs, for your movement. Red meat has been vilified. If you look, and this one's literal too, where, follow the money. That's not, I'm not exaggerating. There's a lot of forces at play to vilify saturated fat and red meat. And then when you look at the actual studies of how we came up with that, you should see what they call red meat. Red meat, they call like a McDonald's burger or a Texas brown sugar rub. Like
There's always a
whatever.
story behind the story.
Oh my goodness. Like when people say, oh, well, this study, yeah. Let's look at how the study was formed. So when we're in school, when I was in school, I learned how to read a study. I don't just go at the end and just read this like little summary. I look at how was the study designed? Who was involved in the study? How many people were in the study? How long did the study go? Was it placebo controlled? Was it double blind controlled? Did the people involved know who had what? Like they don't even wrap their heads around that. But time and time again, when I looked at red meat, it was bogus studies. And the red meat was not defined. Like if you say, Samir, what's your definition of red meat? I'd be like, a cow, a deer, like a steak, like ground beef. That's red meat, it's not the same. It could be a fast food hamburger with cardboard in it. Like just the different things that I saw considered red meat were not legitimately red meat, or they were processed. And then the same problem that we connect to red meat is saturated fat. And that too is a problem because they saturated the fat chemically. So saturation of hydrogen atoms, like the way the chain of fat is made, well, they did it chemically. They didn't do it like naturally. So sure, it's hydrogenated fat or, saturated fat, but it's not the fat that you find in nature.
So many variables around this
Right.
one topic of red meat.
Yes.
So
And
many inconsistencies and variables. Yeah.
terrible. But time and time again, literally, you cannot draw a line, not even close, not even on the same page, to strokes, heart attacks, arterial plaquing, diabetes, kidney disease. I mean, if you go see a nephrologist, like a kidney specialist, because that's where they say, red meat's bad for you. A nephrologist that's well trained will tell you the first factor in kidney disease is high insulin. Red meat does not cause high insulin. Your bread, your pancakes, your sugar, anything that's, a carbohydrate creates high insulin. That's what wrecks your kidney disease. Therefore, when you have diabetes, it wasn't the red meat you were eating that eventually destroyed your kidneys. It was the fruits, vegetables, grains, cereals, nuts and seeds, breads that they told you was okay to eat. Right. So yeah, and that's just from sheer number of patients of me getting them turned back onto protein and red meat. And these are people with CKD, so chronic kidney disease. They've had kidney stones. They've had gout. They're on allopurin. They're on a medication. And I say, listen, what you were doing, was it working? And they're like, no, I still have stones, still have crystals, still have gout, still have kidney disease. I'm like, great. So I don't have to convince you? They're like, no. I said, okay, well, stop eating what you're eating and start eating protein and red meat. And who starts to heal? So it's not my imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Go ahead.
differentiating there? So you mentioned protein. Protein is a general term
Yes.
because it comes in many different food sources. So
Yes.
is there a differentiation between animal protein and vegetable protein or
Yes. Oh yeah.
a nut or
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say hell yeah. So we have complete.
so not all protein is the same, basically.
Absolutely not. No, that someone would be completely lying to you. So a vegan who's well trained, like super trained, would know how to grab like 6 or 7 different types of plant foods, nuts, seeds, overlay them in such a way that they covered all the amino acids. And then you would have a complete profile saying that the conversion is not the same. So even when I can create this amino acid profile of essential and non essential amino acids, and I put them together artificially with all these foods, you have to understand you have to have like a bucket of quinoa, a bucket of chickpeas, um, I don't know, a bucket of peas, a bucket of poppy seeds. Like you're not a cow, you can't eat that much, so they're never able to eat as much as they would have to. So when they quote you the numbers, hey, this has such and such amount. Well, not really. In theory, it does, but the conversion rate is super super poor, right? So like not to pick on vegetarians or vegans or anti-meat people, um, but like in general, if you see anyone bulked up with muscles, they're on a program, they're on a testosterone program, like they're supplementing with testosterone, like steroids and peptides. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not massive because you're eating plants. The only animal that can be massive eating plants are like elephants and gorillas because they have a system and a colon that stretches from here to the moon to be able to convert it into protein and saturated fat. We don't have those powers. I can't convert it. I can't convert a plant into the protein like a herbivore can. So yeah, complete. It's a complete lie. And when you have an animal protein, doesn't have to be red meat. It can be seafood. It can be, but if it was moving and breathing at one time, that is a protein. So in my clinic, I actually, because if I don't tell people that, I say, did you have protein? And they're like, yes, I had peanut butter on toast. You tell me, no training, say, you tell me, just using your common sense, do you think peanut butter and toast is protein as compared to my cup of ground beef or my 6 slices of bacon and, 5 eggs? But they have been trained. They see it on the label. Nutritional label says peanut butter has this amount of protein. Come on, man. I can't convert peanut butter into muscle building architecture. Like very, very little bit of that peanut butter is going to help me out. There's no comparison, none. Amino acid profile in meat, it's just there. It's the whole chain is there. Whatever I need, it's there. Leucine, carnitine, whatever I need. I don't have to eat a whole 10 different types of meat. So yes, protein is an amino acid profile. There's different profiles. Like collagen has less of that amino acid profile than like say your whey protein. They're all different. An animal, you don't even have to wrap your head around that. If it was an animal moving and breathing, it's got what you need. Just try to eat enough of it.
And you're throwing eggs in that same category?
Yes, now you have to eat like what is it, 5 grams. So you probably have to eat like how I eat like 6 eggs at a time to get like a protein hit. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, so eggs are more, I treat eggs and bacon more like fat, like the fat profile's pretty high. But yeah, like you eating 1 or 2 eggs and thinking you're getting like your protein hit, that's not correct. Like you have to eat a lot more. You just don't need the toast and whatever else comes with those
So
breakfasts.
there's one thing that I wanted to touch on with the eggs, because eggs is another one of those foods that I would say, for the most part, it's pretty common that a medical doctor would tell you not to eat too many eggs because of cholesterol.
Yeah.
Um, I personally have had my doctor tell me no more than 2, 3 eggs a week. Um, so what do you say about that? Because eggs are supposed to have cholesterol. I think you would agree that they do. Um, and then a lot of these medical professionals, or even just people in general, we hear it, so we repeat it, even though we might not have the knowledge on it. Don't eat too many eggs. What are your thoughts on eggs, and is there a limit to how many you could eat? Are they bad for you? Do they do more harm than good? Is the cholesterol worse than the protein? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay.
Because there's so much misconception around eggs. It's just one of those
Yes.
topics everybody talks about, eggs.
Yeah, that's been disproven for quite some time now. You'll see in regulatory bodies of, of where nutrition is involved, they've changed that. So this is all under the premise of Ansel Keys, and like from the 1950s, like he was I believe a physiologist, but there was a myth that was created in that it was cholesterol got clogged in your arteries and caused strokes and heart attacks. That's been disproven pretty clearly. So nothing can get like stuck in your arteries. Like there's junctures. I'll get to the eggs. Like this is all connected. So the premise is that if you eat cholesterol, you will plug up your arteries. And then we found out that we actually produce our own cholesterol despite intake of cholesterol. And that in some cases, my cholesterol will lower as I ingest more cholesterol because your body has a balancing act. And that cholesterol is so important, so absolutely imperative that your liver and your brain have a storage and produce their own cholesterol because they can't trust you that you will ingest enough cholesterol. So if you don't ingest cholesterol and it's, putting together cholesterol and producing it, it's got its own fail safes. Why would you have a fail safe in your body to produce cholesterol if it wasn't essential? And then cholesterol is part of the membrane of a cell. You would be aqueous. You would just be watery. We would be like watery blobs without cholesterol. You couldn't even have a thought. A cell couldn't, cells couldn't connect, communicate. They couldn't discharge cargo without a membrane that has cholesterol. So cholesterol is so important, like you will die without it. And that's what we do. We kill people slowly over the years with statin medications. But what we do is we get them to avoid cholesterol. So their body's trying to produce cholesterol. Then we throw strong drugs at them that are absolutely work, drives down your cholesterol. So that means the cholesterol that you need to think now you don't have enough of because we are trying to lower it. We're wondering why you're falling apart, literally. Well, because we're lowering your cholesterol, which holds you together for every cell. We're wondering why you can't think anymore, why your muscles don't work, why they're getting stiff and you're getting weaker. So that whole story it just doesn't happen. What happens is stuff is flowing through your artery and it scratches it. Whether you eat 6 eggs, 10 eggs, 2 eggs, doesn't change the fact of how your arteries and what's flowing through your arteries works. So I could eat 6 eggs. It's when I eat the toast with jam. It's when I have a cigarette. It's when I have a glass of wine. It's when I party all night. It's when I didn't sleep enough. It's when I have a traumatic event, when I'm always stressed out at work, when I get in a fight. These are all oxidative stressors, rust makers. And the molecules that go through my artery scratch the artery. They can't penetrate the artery. Otherwise, IVs wouldn't work. That should be the end of the conversation. How can I stick medicine in your vein or an artery if your artery was permeable? Which means then cholesterol can't get stuck in your artery. That's like crazy talk. Like nothing's getting stuck in your artery. It would be like Ebola. You would just like start bleeding out of your orifices in your eyes, right? Because the junctures start to open. So you eating tons of eggs can't penetrate and make LDL stuck into the artery. It's the oxidative factors in our lives that scratches the artery. Your body has a protective patching mechanism, comes in and patches it. It patches it, and there is some LDL remnants. So in our primitive days, when we opened someone's heart and we saw this white yellowy stuff and we tested it, we're like, oh, LDL, cholesterol. But these were just remnants. This is like blaming if a white car traveling 100 miles an hour smashes into a black car that's not moving, okay? And then I come after the event and the white car is missing. and I see white paint on the black car, do I blame the white paint for damaging the black car? I don't. What damaged the black car was the white car traveling at 100 miles an hour. It was the action that damaged the black car. But in those primitive days, they just came and they saw this white, yellowy stuff, and the white paint is the cholesterol. And they go, oh, cholesterol causes accidents. Cholesterol causes heart attacks. Cholesterol causes strokes. It doesn't work that way. You can't blame the paint, right? So, yeah, if I somehow was able to eat buckets of cholesterol, my body would just stop producing the cholesterol, and vice versa. If I tried to avoid cholesterol, my body would start to build up. And that's on a patient by patient basis. So, most people that start to eat eggs and bacon, lots of eggs every day, to answer your question, no, doesn't cause stroke, heart attack, doesn't cause any disease that I know of, doesn't have a mechanism to do it. Like I said, your body self-regulates cholesterol. It's what I see in blood work is that some people's cholesterol goes up, but their triglycerides come down. And when you're looking at a cholesterol or lipid panel, the conversation should really move away from cholesterol. And with all due respect, if a medical doctor is still talking to you, they look at your whole panel and all they see is LDL, right? Low density lipoproteins, bad cholesterol. And they say, oh, your cholesterol levels are high. We need to, do something about it. Then you need to fire that doctor because that's 60 years old. That's some old thought process. Cholesterol is not penetrating arteries, not getting stuck in arteries. What can be said is no matter how many eggs you eat, if while you're eating those eggs, you have a bad lifestyle, well, then it's the bad lifestyle at the same time you're eating all those eggs that are damaging your arteries. So I would tell you eat as many eggs as you want.
So eat as many eggs as you want and
Yep.
eat lots of animal protein is what you're suggesting.
Yes, based on not, I won't say science, just based on what we all can agree on. We all can agree that you need amino acids like protein. We all agree on that. No matter how we get it, we all agree you need protein to sustain yourself. We may not agree on the source or the amount in grams, but we can agree that you do need protein. So with that logic, yes, I would say animal protein because it's the full profile. Why would you not take the highest quality amino acid profile if you could? Why would you rely on 6 different plants that you would have to eat like 50 kilos at a time? So, yeah.
Speaking of the protein, here's another common, I would say, question, debate, topic that revolves around protein and animal protein that I wanted you to give me your thoughts on or clear up. Gout.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what can you tell me about, yeah.
Bring
So
it
what
on.
can you, yeah, because, obviously, I'm on the lots of animal protein, let's call it a diet.
Yep.
But the one question that I get all the time is, well, if you eat too much red meat, you're going to get gout. I don't know enough about it. I am posing the question to you. How does
Thank you.
gout and red
Thank you.
meat relate?
Okay. They don't. They don't. And thank you for the question. This is one of my favorite subjects. I get like super heated up in the clinic. So I get people that have gout. Okay. Lots, not just a couple, lots. They come to me and they've had gout for years. Raging gout comes and goes. Guess what they avoid because they were told? They avoid red meat. So I said, okay. So when you avoided red meat, did you come off the medication? They said, no. I said, oh, okay. Well, how long have you been avoiding red meat? For years now. Okay. Meat in general? Yes. The doctor said, easy on the protein, easy on the animal meats. I said, just to confirm, so you still have gout? They said, well, if I stop the medication, it comes back, it flares up. And I said, well, how do you know if it flares up? Well, sometimes I will drink pop. I will, I want to have like a little extra pop, so I drink too much pop. And then they name like cake, some stuff. I'm like, well, what about the red meat? They're like, well, I don't eat red meat. And so I walk in these circles until I can finally get them to realize that they followed the instructions. The instructions were easy on the meat, eat lean white meat, so just some chicken and fish, and don't eat red meat. And they still have gout. And not only do they have gout, it still can flare up, and it doesn't flare up with red meat or protein. And then I say, in a very smart ass way, I say, so how's that been working for you? And they think about it and they go, well, it hasn't. I said, so can we agree that either someone misinformed you or lied to you? And they're like, well, the doctor told me. I said, okay. Well, they weren't lying to you. That's all they knew at the time. But they sent you to me because I know better now. Can you trust me? Can you trust your doctor? They sent you to me for a reason. I said, I want you to go on the internet. So I do this all live over and over. I go on Google and I go mechanism of action, gout, fructose. Where does this start? I think it's pronounced allopurinol. Allopurinol. I'm very bad. Sorry. It's a medication we use. Okay. And so we go on the internet right on the spot. I Google it. And what causes gout is fructose. There's no red meat. But the problem is, in science, what we looked at when people have gout is urate or uric acid and purines. You're going to hear that a lot. So you're going to get the preaching of you have to have an alkaline diet. You have to avoid acidic foods and spicy foods. And you have to avoid purine-rich foods, which is red meat and meat. But if you look at the mechanism, if you look at the pathway of how does gout start, what are the byproducts? Over here, you're going to see uric acid, urate levels. You're going to see purines. But if you go back to where the start is, guess what you see? Fructose. No one ever told them that they got to cut down on their pop or their cookies or their cakes, or they used really stupid words like eat in moderation. How do you eat chocolate cake in moderation? Like, who eats a little sliver of cake, or who has like a quarter scoop of ice cream? So you can't even tell someone moderation because there's no, like, that's subjective, right? So we have a very effective medication that fixes it over here. So it will deal with uric acid and purines, where all I nutritionally had to do was say, stop intaking fructose, stop intaking sugars. Just stop the processed foods. You would think, which is common sense, not tell you stop eating hamburger meat, which like sounds crazy to me. So we tell you to stop a food with the chemical pathway at the end, which is not the source of your gout. The source of your gout is fructose. And I hope you look this up. It's very cool when you look at this pathway. So what do I do in the clinic? I just use common sense. I'm like, these are fructose-based foods. I'm not telling you to stop fruit for the rest of your life. Of course I'm not. But I'm like, you know what? Let's just chill out on this Mediterranean-style diet or whatever you're up to. Let's shift away from the carbohydrates and the sugars, which causes gout. Let's get you off your medication. And let's go protein prioritized. Eat the red meat. You can even eat processed meat, believe it or not. You can go to the local deli and eat, like, I don't know, smoked ham or whatever, just not the honey glazed one, right? And guess whose gout gets better? Guess who gets off the medication? It's those people. So it's not my imagination. It's not my opinion. There's no mechanism that you're going to find that at the start of the chemical reaction and the formation of crystals is a piece of meat. It's just not how it works. So this is what I'm faced with. I'm faced with crazy talk of avoid red meat with a patient that's had gout off and on for 10 years. So you tell me,
we just don't know any better because that's what we're told. That's what we hear. We always relate, and I say we, I'm just talking about people in general. We relate gout to red meat. It's just ingrained in us.
Yeah, which I don't know, it's almost insane. Like I said, this is a profile I see over and over and over, because I'm getting metabolically ill people, right? They're being sent to me on purpose because the doctor, like their hands are in the air. They can't do anything more. They've given the meds that they can give. They're doing their acute care so that the person is not in pain and can walk, but they have no more tools. Where if you look at these mechanisms, it's nutrition, hands down. Like it's a no brainer. This is not me talking out of hand. This is time and time again. I replicate this over and over and over. Did you know that uric acid is like is an antioxidant? It's a good thing where we vilify it. We try to play with the levels. So that's not even understood. People don't, they bandy this word antioxidant. They don't really know what that means. But that's going back to what I said for the arteries, oxidative stress, right? So if you're eating foods that um, play with those levels, you're going to have more rusting, so to speak, more crystals, more buildup. And this is where we get into vitamins and minerals when it comes to gout. Something that I see associated generally with people that have gout is very poor um, vitamin mineral levels. Like they're pretty deficient. I can see they're deficient in magnesium, which is going to be like a number one factor. They're low in their heme iron, they're low in their B12, they're low in their D3, they're low in their K2. Um, it's a general trend. I see the relationship. I'll see gout or stones or crystals, malformation that has to do with calcium, and boom. What else do I see? They're just magnesium deficient. They have constipation, they have aches and pains, they're stiff. So there's a lot of related things. So, but yeah,
So
that's
just
a
to be clear on that,
yeah,
just to be clear on that goat, not
yeah,
only does it not cause gout, I'm talking about red meat now. Not only
yeah,
does it not cause gout, but staying off of it is not going to help your gout if you already have it.
not in the least. No, they would argue, well, it's what about the purines? Well, the purines is byproduct. Like the purines is because of what you're doing over here. So yes, theoretically, I guess in a roundabout way, but not. like, but not. It's just the source. Remove the source. Remove you eating steak, but remember, they don't eat red meat. They're not eating meat in general. Like literally, I have like pescatarians or people that are like almost religious about it. They only have like this little bit of sole or little bit of chicken, and that's the way they're describing it to me before they get to know the program. They're like, "Oh, don't worry, we have a little bit of chicken on Friday, a little bit of fish." Or I'm like, "Okay," like like it's not helping. So
Yeah. So
whether they eat,
if somebody ate a bunch of red meat, they
yeah,
barbecued all weekend, they had
yeah,
a whole bunch of red meat, steak, whatever it is that they had, and then a couple of days later, they they get gout, and the
yeah,
doctor says, "Well, what did you do this weekend? What did you eat?" And they said, "Well, I had some barbecue, this and that." And the doctor says, "Well, that's why." What what I'm getting here is you're saying just because you ate red meat a day or 2 or 3 days before, it's the other things that you ate with or that you're not
well,
talking about that caused
yeah,
the
it's
gout, not the fact that you had some red meat because you probably have
that's
it all
right.
the time anyway.
It's the cofactors. It'll be the wine that you had at dinner. It'll be the dinner buns. It'll be all the other stuff that would have lent to the gout. I mean, other than nutrition, you have to remember that dysregulation happens with those foods. So vitamins and minerals essential at preventing something like that aren't usually in those people's diet. So it would be probably complex for a doctor in the sense of that they just don't know those mechanisms. It's just like there's certain things in medicine where they're breaking down with the newest medication, and I'm like, I have to look it up because it's not within my wheelhouse. I mean, I'll learn it, but at the time, it's not within my wheelhouse. Well, that's how they are. They'll be like, well, red meat, purines, and a subject, and then I'll bring up uh, what I said, where it begins with fructose, and they're not even aware of it. They would have never have heard of it. Do you know how many doctors get people that have gout on the Mediterranean diet? So they increase the load of fructose. They increase the load of oxalates.
Wow, that's so
These are all,
interesting.
yeah. So they do the opposite of what I would do, and therefore it's evident because just ask yourself. You don't have to take my word at it. You could just ask someone how long they had gout. They have gout on and on, and they have to avoid certain foods. And then if they do say, because I have had people say, well, when I eat meat, this and this happens. I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a buildup of some other cofactors. You got more problems to worry about than the big barbecue you had, Saturday afternoon. There was probably a lot of other cofactors that, set it off. Because I've never had, knock on wood to date, anyone that had a flare up because they decided to have a big barbecue. They had a flare up. It usually happens actually with, like I have a couple cases. They're all kind of close. That's when they drink red wine. It brings on their gout, so fructose load. So gout and some treats.
Okay, let's jump into that then. You've mentioned fructose, sugars a few times now. I want to talk about sugars,
Okay.
fructose, sugars. You let's package in insulin, glucose. Can you break down for me the difference between what sugar is compared to what insulin is compared to what glucose is, if there's even a difference? Tell me about that. And then tell me how bad. I believe that you would believe that they're bad. If so, tell me about the effects of sugars, because almost everything that we have has sugar. Pops, breads. If it doesn't have artificial sugar, it converts into sugar. That's another topic that is so, I would say, misrepresented or misunderstood, or we just don't have enough knowledge on. So, can you give me a deep dive into that?
Yes. So sugar is a common word. There's good sugars, there's bad sugars. So the sugars I'm talking about, the main one is glucose, right? So if you've ever heard of polymers or monomers, like the smallest piece. So sugars are broken down into these little pieces, and then the different combinations gives you the different names. So you would have like dextrose or maltose. So you have all of these different names, but they're just repeating combinations of this little bit of sugar. Okay. Now we make our own sugar. Okay. We make our own glucose, and that's called gluconeogenesis, right? New life, and you have lipogenesis, you have fat that you can create. So we're going to put that on the shelf for a second. So the argument and what we once thought was that sugar was essential to life. And when we were in our rudimentary, primitive science, we saw that the brain needed sugar. And we got confused between saying the word sugar and carbohydrates and intermixing the words. And so there are certain functions in the brain and the nervous system and the spine that require glucose. But again, in the miracle of evolution or however we came about, our bodies are so amazing that it can't rely on you. So just imagine it's 300 years ago, 500 years ago. It can't rely on you trying to find honey or berries. It could be the dead of winter and there's no food. So, evolutionary wise, your body was able to create from fat and protein sugar that it needed. So, there is no dietary need, and I'll say that again, there is no dietary need for you to exogenously, to outside, take a sugar, something sweet, and put it in your mouth. Carbohydrates turn into sugar. There's no essential requirement for you to eat a carbohydrate. Your body will make its own glucose, its own sugar, its own carbohydrates. So whether you want to interchangeably use the word carbohydrate or sugar or glucose, it's one of those macros that we make. So that should be the first part of when you're explaining to someone, do we need it? No, we don't. We make it ourselves, gluconeogenesis. I'll break apart a triglyceride. It has three fatty acids and a glycerol backbone. You break it all apart. It's amazing. It gets sculpted, and then you have sugar. You can do the same thing with an amino acid. You break it apart, you rejimmy it, boom, you got glucose. So there's no need for glucose. Glucose feeds the muscles, gets stored in the muscles as glycogen. It's a great source to fight, for flight, for running, for doing explosive movements, brain thinking. Sometimes you require certain brain thoughts, certain speeds. We use glucose. Nervous system, you use glucose. You can, and then you have insulin. Insulin is the shuttle or transporter of glucose. It does many things. So insulin is a hormone, and I want you to think of insulin as a signaler and as a carrier. It tells other functions what to do, what not to do, and it also carries or helps push energy. But it's much more than just energy. It's a grandpapa of hormone signaling. So if our body makes its own sugar, it's got its own sugar supply. I wake up in the morning and I decide to have cereal, which is a carbohydrate. It turns into sugar. And I decide to have a big glass of orange juice, and it has fructose, which is a combination of two sugars, these smaller bits. So it's just a form of sugar. And I drink that. And then I have some super smoothie, and I drink that too. It's just too much sugar, and the pH, your acidity, alkalinity is so tightly controlled that you would die. You would just die if your blood was allowed to be that acidic with the sugar. So insulin gets pumped out from the pancreas and says, whoa, 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 easy, easy. And it grabs the sugar and it starts stuffing it in areas. So the first place, the favorite place, is if you're normal and healthy, it says, let's stick it in the muscles. Muscles love sugar, love it. So puts it in. Man, this guy's still eating. He just had like a strawberry Danish. My goodness. Insulin is like, more insulin soldiers come out. They are ramming it into the muscles. Then they're turning it into like a stored form of glucose, glycogen. They're ramming it in the muscles. It's still flowing in the blood. They're looking, well, where do I put it? Okay, we're going to put it, some in the liver. We're going to store it in the liver. And then they're looking for more places. So insulin is doing this day in, day out, because you are intaking glucose or sugar or carbohydrates, which you don't need. And our body's not designed. So this causes dysregulation, causes imbalance, causes acidity, causes sickness and disease. Feeds the hallmarks of cancer, right? Which is a totally other subject. So insulin protects us, but insulin also controls whether you can get that glucose out of the cell. And this is what people forget, which is when you're having a hard time to lose fat and you're not feeling well, you now have insulin resistance because insulin is on high alert and your pancreas can't allow you to make your blood that acidic. And so it just starts pumping out insulin. Just in case you get a whiff of a cinnamon roll, insulin, it's called a cephalic response, is pumping out. You're absolutely dysregulated. You start getting red patches on your skin. You get skin tags. Your eyesight starts to waver. You get heart palpitations. You have aches and pains. You get swelling. So insulin is the signaler and carrier of glucose. Glucose is an energy source. Insulin also tells you whether you're hungry or satiated. So you have ghrelin and leptin. So you have a hunger hormone, and satiety hormone. Cortisol. Cortisol allows you to wake up. So you have all of these hormones that make you function. When insulin is too high, when glucose is too high, it interferes with the communication. So your cortisol, how people blame all their ills on cortisol, oh, my cortisol must be high, because of stress. You need cortisol, but you just don't need that much, or you don't need it going up like this. So insulin also is an amazing signaler. So in simple terms, people think that it just shuttles energy, but the sickness that comes from insulin resistance is that too much insulin starts to stop important signals from going on. So it shuts down your satiety signal and turns on your hunger signal. So now you're always hungry. You're never satisfied. It affects brain cognition, blocks pathways,
It's
reroutes
so
signal.
interesting. I'm just gonna jump in for 1 second. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting you say that because 100% for sure, I know, especially in the past, sugar and carbs seem to never fill me up.
No, you know what?
They just seem to never fill me up. I could eat man, I remember being young and I could eat half a pizza. Like, it just
Yeah.
never seems to fill me up. The more sugar I have, I just wanna have more food.
Yes, because it makes you leptin resistant. It stops the hormone from saying that you're satisfied. And it also creates um, so blood sugar is supposed to be rolling hills and plains. So if I could look at it on a graph and look at you during your day with say a glucose monitor, I would see just gentle hills when you ate and then plains, just flat. When you eat that way and you eat a pizza, you eat a bagel, you have a glass of orange juice or whatnot, what happens is you get a mountain. The mountain goes like this and it peaks and you feel really good for like 5 minutes and really satisfied and happy. And then it goes bam. And the problem is it doesn't go to a plain, it goes to a trench. And when you have a trench, that trench is insulin coming in, overworking because you just created like Mount Everest of sugar in your blood. So it
Mm.
overcompensates. And so if I was thinking I would be satisfied with a small pizza, now I'm dreaming that I had an extra large pizza. And you can just continually eat because it is a safety mechanism. If you're running off of sugar, you cannot allow yourself to have low sugar. So that's where clinical work and working with someone is really important. This is why I strongly disagree with anyone that just one day wakes up and decides, oh, I'm going to go keto or carnivore. I'm going to go look. Like, they just do it because depending on their metabolic health, they may be fragile, and that's kind of dangerous to do it that way. I mean, I would like to see them do low carb, but I would like to do it in steps because of that mountain and trench. So that's what kind of insulin resistance is overcompensation of trying to remove sugar, trying to store it, and that's where you get a fatty liver, right? You don't get a fatty liver because of the eggs and the bacon and the cholesterol, or you even using beef tallow and butter. You get it actually from sweet stuff because it gets converted. When your insulin can't stuff that energy in anywhere anymore, I think it's ectopically, it's viscerally, like your organs start to get saturated with fat. And when you start getting that, you're in trouble. That's when you start to get really, really sick. And then all of these diseases that you think you have that are separate issues, they're all actually related to glucose and insulin and the imbalance or dysfunction. Because, like I said, insulin's in charge of your satisfaction, satiety level. It's in charge of releasing glucagon, which is the opposite, right? So you have insulin and you have glucagon. Glucagon releases the beast. Glucagon opens the door. But saying that if insulin is not working, insulin sends a signal. So not to get too complex, but you have a triglyceride. So sugars get converted into this fat. Okay. And the molecule is too big to enter the fat cell. So insulin disassembles it. It signals it into the cell. It gets reassembled. So those three fatty acids and glycerol backbone, it's a huge molecule again. Then you're running on the treadmill. You've decided to go keto, carnivore, low carb, listen to Samir, and you're like, it's not working. I haven't lost any weight. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, yeah, because your insulin's broken right now. So you have to you have to work at it for quite some time, depending on how broken it is, and then the insulin signal will work again, and then the insulin signal will signal the trapped fat inside the cell, the triglyceride. It'll say disassemble, and then it will be able to come back out of the cell. That is true resistance when you're trying to figure out what this insulin resistance is your inability to move energy properly, right? So
Yeah,
hopefully I answered what glucose is.
yeah, is there a difference between the sugars that we eat that are let's call it sugar that you would buy in a box, your white sugar, your brown sugar, and sugar in fruit? Because they're both sugars.
Yes. So at the end of the day, there's no difference. A sugar molecule is a sugar molecule. But saying that, before everyone gets all like worked up, is fructose can only be broken down in the liver. So fructose breaks down into a glucose molecule. Fructose itself can't be used. The receptors we have in our cells, like it needs to be metabolized in the liver. So if I'm eating an apple, like just an apple, the fiber in the apple slows down the process of the bolus or load. So is there a difference? Yes, when it's in its natured form. If I denature it and I take the apple and I put it in a juicer and then I drink the juice, the load changes. It's still fructose glucose, right? It's still a split of both sugars, but it just instantly starts to go into, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So what can be said is the difference between a chocolate bar, a banana, and an apple is that sugar in the form of fructose or glucose, whatever type of sugar is trapped in the fruit, is regulated at a certain speed by the fiber. Not that fiber is inherently good for anything. It just happens to be good at slowing down load, sugar load. And it gives you more of a this, right? If it's denatured, then sugar is sugar is sugar. Like almost all sugars, like white bread actually probably turns to glucose faster than a teaspoon of sugar, believe it or not. It's a pretty wild one because remember, in the table sugar is still fructose. Fructose still has to go through a process of breaking down, where the starches are just like boom, it's sugar in your blood, right? So yeah, if a sugar comes as it comes in nature, if you're diabetic, you still have to treat it like it's dangerous. And this is where I am on the other side of the planet. I don't think I've met anyone to date. Maybe I have, but there's so few that would agree with me, but they don't get the results I've gotten, where I treat fruit intake with respect. If you're metabolically ill, going back to answering your question, is there a difference? There's no difference when you're diabetic. There's no difference because the diabetics that come to me have a free for all with their fruit and they're raging diabetics. And then they don't believe me. So I get them to wear their CGM, the continuous glucose monitor.
Mhm.
And then that argument is done. Because all of a sudden they'll eat a banana. It'll just like spike. They'll eat an apple. They'll have like a 2-hour spike. They start to understand that they've been lied to. So it's not my opinion. It's a glucose monitor. You can even look online. You can follow what's her name? Something goddess, the glucose goddess. But I mean, so many medical doctors now are using CGMs. So that can be proven right away that if you're metabolically ill, there's no difference. You will get a spike just like you would with a chocolate bar.
I have another curiosity with sugar.
Yeah.
Does it absorb or does your body accept it differently if you're taking it by itself versus taking it with protein or another food, for example? If you eat
Yes.
sugar alone, I haven't eaten in 2 hours. Now I'm going to go grab a chocolate bar or I'm going to have, whatever sugar it is by itself. Um, does your body accept it differently than having it together with a piece of steak or some other
Yes.
protein?
That's been proven again with CGM work. So I track people on my phone. I have a whole patient load that I follow on CGMs. And so the first exercise is to answer your question, the first week they just eat the way they normally eat. And then and I track them and it's like crazy, right? It's all over the place. I have them eat the same way in the second week, except I have them load with a protein or a fat or a fiber. So it can be like salad, could be a piece of meat, could be a handful of nuts, piece of cheese, don't care. As long as it's like a protein, a fat, or something fibery. I've literally pulled this off with cookies. They've done it. They just want to test it out where they front load with like a nice piece of cheese and then they have like a cookie and a different reading. So I want you to think of your throat as like the clog, like the drain, and this is the pipe. When you eat sugar on its own and you're snacky and you decide to have like a bowl of ice cream at 9 p.m., that's a terrible idea, right? But we can take that terrible idea and just be realistic. If you're like, listen, I'm eating the Jerry's, like I'm gonna have my ice cream. I'm like, okay, no problem. What I want you to do is literally have like a little handful of nuts or a piece of cheese and then have your ice cream. And you should see that the sugar goes slower. So that's what we do. And it's really been successful. People that are having a hard time to change their nutrition, we have them eat their food in order and essentially put the carbs in the background. And it does make a difference. So if you have like this most wonderful of brunches, you know what comes with like, the pancakes and the waffles and the hash browns. And I say, don't eat the toast first. Literally have a couple strips of bacon, eat an egg, take the toast, dip it in the yolk. I actually teach them to eat their food in order and not just, or if they're having like a Christmas dinner, the fresh, mama comes out with those fresh buns or whatever. And I say, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't like, at least put butter on it, put some fat on it. But like, wait, eat dinner and have the bun with your dinner. And then what you're doing is making the sugar curved instead of peaked. Because if you can keep your sugar curved, a rolling hill, then it doesn't make a trench. It just goes into a plane. As soon as you hit a peak, you just see, like, when I first started doing this, I was like panicking. I was like, oh my God. My wife would be like, would you shut that, would you shut that off? And I had to send out a disclaimer that I try, it's all this disclaiming, like no matter what readings you're on your own, basically, I'm just here, uh, because craziness. Like I didn't even learn this in school. I didn't know people do this to themselves knowingly, like, like mountains. And then the trench is so deep, going back to not having any clue of eating their food in order, that they get dizzy and lightheaded and their eyes go fuzzy, like they lose their vision. That's that's a crazy level of sugar load. I mean, I had a guy drink 17 he had some connection to the Coca-Cola factory. So he
Oh,
got a case every day and he would drink 17 cans a day
wow.
until he got hospitalized. Then he went to the hospital. He's like going blind. So eat your food in order.
One last question regarding
Yeah.
sugar. So sugar is not good for us, but there are some people out there who say that absolutely no sugar in your diet is acceptable. What are your thoughts on that? So you're obviously saying that too much sugar is no good for you.
Yeah.
You're also saying that if you're going to take sugar, how you eat the sugar and what complements the sugar, what you're having with it before or after makes a difference.
Yeah.
Are you of the opinion that we should 100% try to avoid sugar as much as possible? Or is there a certain level of sugar at certain times that is not so harmful? And I would understand that it could be I'm talking about in a general term. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about someone who has a specific need, because obviously case by case, everything is going to change with your diet, who you are, what your age is, maybe your
Yeah.
gender, maybe what you've been diagnosed with, and maybe your other levels. But generally speaking,
Well, generally speaking, like sugar's not bad for you because you make it. So I don't think the body would make it if it's bad for you. I think it's bad for you when it comes from the outside. So we should clarify sugar's not like bad for you. Remember, gluconeogenesis. So there is a need for sugar. There's a need for internally, endogenously made glucose or sugar or different forms. Saying that, I go back to, I study history, and what I see historically, evolutionary, um, is that we didn't have the same diseases that we have. And when I study indigenous peoples around the world of different climates and regions
I'm
who
glad you're
eat,
bringing that up.
yeah, who eat seasonally and respect the seasons and are not touched by any modern agriculture or modern means of production. I don't see cavities. I don't see like dental arch decline. I don't see metabolic disease. They eat in season the meager, fruits and vegetables, highly fibrous, very low sugar content. They can do some storage, but it's still limited, and the content of actual glucose is very low. I I don't see any problem with that. I practice that myself. I always practice to eat locally because if it comes from South Africa or Korea or from the other side of the world, even the States, I'm like, it obviously needed some chemicals that aren't being stated here that can make it look beautiful and gorgeous. How? Like, again, common sense. That's not magic. That's a chemical, right? So in season, I've seen like with people that I work with, when I get them to do it that way, sugar doesn't tend to be a problem from external, and they practice temperance. They practice like, take it easy. Like, you
Uh-huh.
know, um, even myself, so I just partake of a little bit. Strawberries come in season, cherries, peaches, whatever I choose. I just have one in my day. Um, and I have felt off when I eat like an extra apple. It could be me. I'm just sensitive now, but I don't feel good for it if I decide to eat two apples or three apples, which I don't do. But I mean, there was a time where I would have two or three apples and I would feel like garbage. And you're like, it's just an apple. Uh, but that's me. So yeah, that's what I would say is like I just going from personal experience, personally how I came down this way nutritionally too with sugar is that I believe in looking back at myself as a child and the challenges that I had. When I think back, I was addicted to sugar in a very bad way. That made me crazy, like just crazy sugar. And so now I read the science and I see the studies and the anecdotal stories and whatever. But I lived it. I did crazy, crazy things with sugar specifically. Uh, a bottomless pit for sugar, crazy thoughts, bad sleep, heartburn, every known gastrointestinal issue. And as soon as I took sugar out of my life, oh my God, like it's like two different people. Your brain works better, your body works better, you heal better, you don't get sick. Strange skin things don't happen. Like, I don't know, like just every conceivable ill. So I never see anyone flourish on sugar. I never see a necessity for sugar. The less sugar in your life, the better. Why allow something to control you that way? It's just like anything. Like I watch people, I listen to them. Like really, like is it like you have to have it? Like you have to have it? Like
So in a
that's my
nutshell,
thought.
your advice is try to stay away from it as much as you possibly can.
You got to minimize it. If you're getting your sugars through natural ways, like any type of agriculture, fruits and vegetables, general rule, enjoy it locally, be reasonable. If at any time you eat it and you feel unwell, that means you should not eat it. So there are certain fruits and vegetables that make people sick. Recognize it. It bloats you up or hurts your belly. Don't eat it. And when it's out of season, because remember, we're reacting to the angle of the sun and the distance of the sun and the season. People forget about that. So we are now, if you're in Canada, Ontario, our bodies are storing. We are storing for a time where we're not going to have food, right? Where our energy requirements are heightened because normally we would be trying to survive the winter. Our bodies know this. We didn't have Fortinos, you know, So our body is inherently going to store more energy to protect itself. This is the worst time to eat out of season, to increase your intake of sugar. So even saying that, if you're going to have sugar, it's going to be a part of your life. And I've given this advice. I'm like, you got a run of, depending on where you live, 4 or 5 months, and then you cut it and you just cycle it so that during the time that you really don't need sugar in winter, because you're not trying to survive, you're safe. And I've seen pretty good weight regulation and metabolism just by them following that. They have fun during the warmer months, they're more active. And then as soon as like October, November comes, they just stop eating all that fruit and all those vegetables.
Samir, I could talk about nutrition and learn about it and listen to you for hours and hours and hours on end because it's just something that is interesting and it's just something that is part of our everyday lives. No matter who you are, it's just there. And the
Yep.
more educated we are on it, obviously the better off we'll be for it. Um, but I have one last question for you. New Year's. This is going to
Yep.
be a general one. It's a new year.
Yep.
Everybody has resolutions, goals. Um, Everyone wants to be healthier. It's typically a very common resolution for people in the new year. I'm going to lose 5 pounds. I want to get a little more toned. I want to cut out my sugar, whatever it is. What little piece of advice, general advice, can you give to us all, to either achieve our goals, make them realistic, um, just some general offerings to us in the new year? Because I think baby steps are important.
Yes. Uh, Sustainability is important. I think setting up missions. So always having a mission week to week and not moving forward until that mission is accomplished and understanding it took you years perhaps to get in the situation you're in. So to understand it could even take you years to get out. I think being realistic about expectations is different for everyone. But if you want instant results because you made a resolution January 1st and come February 1st, nothing has happened, I think you're unrealistic. However, you set up your mission and goals is unrealistic. If you've been last 3 years, 4 years laying on your Duffy on the couch, years, how do you expect change in 30 days? And any New Year's resolution that has to do with your physical and mental wellness, which I think are not indivisible, they are one. If you're trying to fix your brain and your mind and your spirit, you must fix the body and vice versa. If you want to fix the body, you have to fix the mind. Don't separate them.
That's such a good point.
Thank you. And this might go against the grain, but everyone makes a resolution of going to the gym and working out. And then we all make memes, us regular gym goers, because we're going to see those people for like 2 months, 3 months. The gym's going to suck from January, February, maybe late March, and then they'll all be gone. Happens every year because they think you can outrun a bad diet and you cannot. You absolutely cannot. So I would say to first mission, don't use, I know this might sound crazy, but don't use exercise as your main tool to change the mind and body. Use the fuel. Whatever you, that's your first mission is you don't have to go to Good Life and do that, stepping exercises, half kill yourself, treadmill, 45 degrees, blah, blah, blah. All you need to do is the first step to your resolutions, control what you put in your mouth. 90% of the change, the mission is going to be energy. I mean, it's what keeps you alive, right? You on the treadmill is not going to take care of an acute thing. But you deciding what you're going to put in your mouth will. So, first resolution, you're going to use food as the grand changer. If you have to pick, am I going to the gym tonight or am I going to meal prep? I'm going to meal prep. And then I would say with all of us, including me, all influencers, and we got an opinion on this and do this thing and take this supplement. What is your skin made out of? Protein. What are your thoughts made out of? Protein. Eyesight, protein. Movement, protein. Heart, protein. Bones, protein. What are you going to prioritize is the most important nutrient that you eat every day? Protein. If those are the two things I could say, make your resolution around what you're going to put in your mouth and then prioritize protein. No matter, don't even allow someone like me, because I will give you a number, it's not even a number. You just have to make a marked that every day starting January 1st, you will make sure that you eat something that was moving and breathing at least once in the day, and your life will change. It will change. You will give it the fuel, like the building blocks that it needs. That's what I would suggest.
So in your practice, when you're working with your clients and
Yeah.
helping them with their health, with their nutrition, with their ailments,
Yeah.
whatever that is, tell me what a typical diagnosis for you would entail. I mean, I know what it entailed, but I just want you to mention it because I'm gonna I mean, obviously we're gonna leave your info for anybody who wants to contact you. But to start off, brand new client comes to you, whatever it is that they're coming to you for, how do you approach that initial conversation, that initial contact? What is it that you're looking for from them for you to do your analysis?
Well, optimally, if they have lab work, and if they have lab work with the markers that I prefer, and then a food journal. So, like a raw, truthful, like no holds barred journal, which most people fail. And I have to say, because I'm not cheap, I'm not $40, right? So, but I value what I do. I'm going to do a good job. You will pay me, but I will do a great job. So if you just want to kind of jot down some foods that you ate, don't come to me. My expectation is I'm going to get a 7-day food journal. I'm going to know that you got up at 2 a.m. and ate those Reese's Pieces because that's what people do. I want to know about it. I want to know about everything that passes your mouth, and I want to know what time because people don't realize the time you eat tells me so much about you. So much information. I want to know your supplements. I want to know your medications. I want to know your medical diagnoses that you have been given from a doctor. And then the blood work. So if they were reaching out to me, I would see what blood work they have. But I'm going to give myself a little plug here. I'm happy to say that I have been able to, it's taken me a couple of years now, but I've been able to formulate a way to metabolically analyze someone with the least amount of labs. So I can literally take like labs that your like regular doctor did, it's just like a physical and barely has any proper information. I now can use it. I've been able to formulate ratios and calculations, proprietary. So, but I take those labs, they give me so much information. I take the food journal, the supplements, and then I like a life story. Like if they're reaching out to me, I find that 70% of the nutritional assessment is your story, is like, what's your motivation? I want to know why you haven't done it on your own. I want to know about your family. Sometimes, half the times the people come, they don't even realize it's the other half in their house, or there's like things that they never thought of that was preventing them from making those moves. And then I'm outside the box. I recognize it. So I want your story. I want details. The more details, the better. And then once I get that information, I book them in and I take as much time as I need in that first initial assessment. And then I break down in 90 days. I use 90 days, sometimes 120 days, depending on how old the blood work is, if they give it to me. Your red blood cells have a turnover of about 90 days. So to make changes, what I try to do for you is make a sizable change that you can see in your blood work. And that's going back to a clinical nutritionist, metabolic clinical nutritionist is I'm working with numbers, blood work, not just like, did you lose some weight? on the scale or around your waist. I want to make sure I optimized you metabolically. So I follow you. You can communicate with me through a messaging system weekly, and I will be by your side as much as you need. It's up to you. You message me, I will answer week by week by week over the course of that 90 to 120 days. If we come up against a big challenge somewhere in there, sometimes we do, then you can just book me for like 30 minute. We'll chat. I'll walk you through it. I'll walk you off the cliff,
Yeah.
and we go from there. So it's usually a 90-day process. The
And with
initial,
today's technology, your customers or clients would have the option to either come in and see you in your office, or you can also do um, a Zoom or a video type chat. Is that correct?
yes. So if it's pure nutrition, they can just do it online. If it's osteopathic in nature, so there's a musculoskeletal need, something to do with form and function, their body, then of course they need to come in. So it really comes down to, are they using their insurance? Are they paying out of pocket? What their insurance covers. And I've had some videos on this where I'm like, that's not how you should choose or go about what you need. Just skip on a couple party nights or whatever. And
Mm.
if you have to pay out of pocket, you have to pay out of pocket. But I think it's worth it, just because we dial in, especially if you have a diagnosis of diabetes, if you have a diagnosis, say, post cancer, after say like breast cancer. I get some pretty severe diagnoses, and I just feel like it's like incredibly blessed that I am in a position where I can work with people and get them back on their feet and see the results, like physically, and then blood work, see them, like, how many diabetics now have gone into remission? It's like, it's crazy. Like, they are 10-year diabetics. 10-year, I have a 20-year diabetic. Like,
Wow,
they
that's
they didn't.
amazing.
Yeah, like, I almost sometimes I like get choked up, like, I'm just like, damn, it's just like it's very moving for me. Like, it's just like, this
Well,
person would have been.
that's rewarding in itself, right? I mean, that's the whole point of your profession. That's the whole point of what you do.
Yes, yes. I've been
The
able to.
satisfaction, I think, comes from these results, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, it makes my day. It gives me purpose. It was really hard. Uh, I've been I coached for 30 years, and then the end product is my students, right? And I would live vicariously through my students, through their exploits and achievements, and seeing them win bouts, and just progressing, and seeing them change as a human being. And I'm like, I'm part of that, and that, again, like I said, I've been blessed to be given the opportunities I have. You know, I'm blessed by the doctors. I would like to mention that too, um, by the doctors that took me in, that mentored me, that trained me, that trusted me, that invested the time. They invested, schooling in me. They invested their time in me, to Dr. Jarecki and Dr. Di Valentino. Um, I wouldn't be here without them as well, right? To have that opportunity. But yeah, I just been able to transfer that now. I treat my patients like my students. I teach them, and that's what I'm expecting, is that they pick up the skills just like I taught students. How to throw a jab, cross, and then see them successfully pull it off in a bout or a sneaky armbar. Now I'm teaching them, and they're teaching their family, which is, it's just spectacular. Where they're
Yeah.
like,
The
you know,
fact that
the
you have that passion to your students in the gym and your clients in the medical practice, I think says a lot, because a lot of people just go through their jobs and they go through the motions. And the fact that you have the passion really says a lot. So
yeah,
I definitely want to thank you for that.
yeah, it's my pleasure, and there's more to come. I really feel that there's more to come in 2026. Some projects. Yeah, I can't say them out loud yet. I've been sworn to secrecy, but very, very excited at some opportunities that have been offered to me in the nutrition and osteopathic world, along with botanicals, implementing naturopathic and herbal methods. Yeah, some good things to come January. So I'm excited for that.
And the people that come to see you, just I want to wrap it up with this. The people you deal with at the clinic, it could be a wide range. I just want to get this understanding that people are coming to you for many, many reasons. Some people are coming to you because they've had an illness and they want post um, recovery
Yep.
or post um, advice, let's say, on healing or moving on or moving past that. Um, I would imagine you have people coming to you for general health.
Yep.
I just want to feel better, or I want to lose some weight, or I want to put on some weight, or I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but pretty much anybody could get value out of what you're practicing at your clinic.
Yes, it's a fairly wide overview. That's the osteopathic method. It's practicing medicine without giving someone a pharmaceutical. So either hands-on manipulation, moving the body, teaching the body, putting manual inputs into the body, mobilizing the body, soft tissue techniques, pressure points, exercise, programming. You've got the nutrition, you've got the botanicals, which we didn't touch upon, but like that's a whole other, department where they don't they don't want to use pharmaceuticals. They want to use like a gentle, natural method, and then I formulate those. So yeah, I get athletes just because of my background, so which is really cool. So everyone from like tennis player, hockey player, jiu-jitsu guys, Muay Thai guys, boxers, for injuries, for prevention, for mobilization. They saw a video, of me doing a certain exercise. It interested them. So yeah, I have a wide array of booking, whether it's supplements, nutrition, botanicals, physical strength exercise, and then the osteopathic method itself. I'm a
And
one-stop shop.
yeah, and if somebody wanted to reach out to you, where could they find you?
Uh, they could go on my Instagram initially, so nutrition and mobility, um, or Samir Siphon. You'll see it's nutrition and mobility. They just DM me. I actually don't have a website, uh, and I've been told by everyone under the sun that's a mistake, but I don't think so because life is really good. I have no complaints. I have like 40 patients a week, so I'm good, you know? So I get to pick and choose, which is really nice. They can go on my Facebook and message me. They, Samir Saif, they can give me not just try and friend me, but give me an explanation. But I primarily use, believe it or not, Instagram and my Facebook and referrals for that interaction. They can email me. Am I able to give you my email?
Sure,
Or
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's Samir at solosmedical.com. SOLOS medical, MEDICAL, solosmedical.com. They can email me, give me their story, let me know what their needs are, and then I will communicate with them from there.
That's awesome. Because this is one of those topics that is endless in terms of the conversation. I'd love to do it again at some point and jump on some different topics.
I would too. I had actually some notes here just in case, if afforded the opportunity to come back on. And thank you again. It was an honor to be part of this. Is the actual like vitamins and minerals and herbs that someone can introduce into their life. I think there's a lot of noise out there, lots of noise, lots of influencer stuff, lots of things. I like to really rely on my clinical experience. So I'm not talking in theory. I'm literally changing blood markers and symptomology with vitamins and minerals and some botanicals, some herbs. And that would be a subject I'd really like to be able to share. I'm sure people message me all the time now. And they're like, what do you think of turmeric? What do you think of ginger? I heard you're supposed to take 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. What kind? Everyone's asking me, right? So I think that would be a really fun subject to cover.
Well, let's set a plan. We'll connect again, and we'll set another time to go over a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I had a bunch of topics that I wanted to get into today, and next time we'll get into what you think is best, and we'll
Sure.
just explore some of those. Because I mean, obviously you're the pro, so you would have a little
So
bit
they
more
say.
knowledge on what people need. So,
Yeah.
all right,
I look
thank you
forward
very
to it.
much. I appreciate all the info,
My pleasure.
and I definitely look forward to doing it again.
Me too. Peace and love, strength and honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you so much.